This year, Parliament declared a climate emergency, acknowledging decades of evidence that greenhouse gas emissions caused by human activity are driving up global temperatures and leading to extreme weather events around the world. The UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has announced that we have just 11 years to cut carbon emissions before causing irreparable damage to the planet. After seeing record-breaking temperatures in July, London Mayor Sadiq Khan said, "London's experiencing temperatures of nearly 40 degrees today, and climate change projections suggest hot summers will become far more frequent, 50% of the time by 2050. That's why we're taking action to tackle the climate emergency." But campaign groups are questioning the mayor's commitment to tackling climate change. That's because Sadiq Khan's supporting the Silvertown Tunnel, a controversial £1 billion Thames road tunnel between Greenwich Peninsula and Newham, with a larger borehole than the current Blackwall Tunnel to accommodate HGVs. About a third of CO2 emissions in the UK are from road vehicles. Any response to the climate emergency calls for a reduction in CO2 emissions from cars, motorbikes, and especially HGVs.
Well, I've been wanting to do something about the Silvertown Tunnel for quite a long time. Then the Extinction Rebellion protest happened in April, and I was quite involved in going on to things there. And then somebody who was also really wanting it to get going again contacted me on Twitter. So together we wrote a letter to the mayor, and within a week we got 250 signatures, 15 school heads, lots of different groups. I decided to make a coalition so that it was cross-party, not just a Green Party thing, not just Extinction Rebellion, but included Liberal Democrats, Labour Party, Momentum, Speak Out Woolwich, EGRA, lots of local people.
When we started the campaign a few months ago, we got various local people to sign a letter to the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, whose decision it is to go ahead with the tunnel or otherwise.
Sadiq Khan is a very difficult person to read, and it all basically depends on his office and him. He is the one individual that can stop this, and so far has shown absolutely no interest in doing this.
Now, before he got elected in 2016, he said that he would review the Silvertown Tunnel, which was a Boris Johnson project. And then when he got elected, within a few weeks, he meekly said he'd go along with it, and he's been supporting it ever since.
I mean, I got the papers from this review out of City Hall. There was no such thing as a review. He was basically given some options by TfL as to how to make it more palatable. And then mainly kind of surface things like this ridiculous idea of having a bus you can put your bike on.
In December last year, the Mayor of London declared a climate emergency. So I thought, great, this means that someone is taking it seriously. It means the political class is now suddenly taking an interest and actually are going to take drastic action. This is an emergency. And yet business is going as usual, and I don't understand. We can't be planning for growth, surely.
I think that building the Silvertown Tunnel would be a really bad mistake. The overarching reason is we have a climate emergency, and there's now general consensus about that. So even the UK Parliament has passed a motion saying we have a climate emergency. So is Greenwich Council and Newham Council, the other side of the river. But we really can't afford to build new roads infrastructure at this time. We have to start changing the way we approach these issues of transport. So we're calling instead for much more public transport and for a system of smart road pricing.
In the construction alone, it's going to emit around 150,000 tonnes of CO2 into the local atmosphere. In a situation of climate emergency that the government has now recognised, Labour has recognised, all the main parties have recognised, that's just completely hypocritical. Today I've come here near Greenwich Peninsula to leaflet local residents to just primarily raise awareness that this project is happening and it's due to be signed into a legally binding contract very soon, in a matter of weeks.
About the Silvertown Tunnel, it's a PFI project, private finance initiative. So all the money goes to a business. It doesn't go back into the community. So £1 billion is coming out of the community and going to businesses, and it's not helping us, it's not making public transport better.
Councils are falling over each other, politicians are falling over each other to to jump on the climate bandwagon, and yet they've forgotten about this one.
This is the first tunnel that's been built with a reserved lane for buses. Just think about that. There is a reserved lane each way, more than 30 buses going each way. I can't think of another way of encouraging more people to use a bus.
A child of 12 knows now that every new road brings in new traffic. Not just ordinary new traffic, but a load of extra heavy goods vehicles using the tunnel. And the feeder roads are often already very congested, so having an extra tunnel is just going to make things worse.
Whilst ostensibly people might think that building another tunnel will alleviate traffic, what we know across the country is the more roads, tunnels, whatever that you build, the more traffic seems to find them. And so that is not the solution.
The other thing that happens that they haven't really taken into account is this time of day, so about 5 o'clock onwards, you get congestion going southbound, and that builds up, and this area gets very, very polluted. I mean, it is quite polluted already, but around that time of day, it gets worse and worse and worse. And if you have a Silvertown Tunnel, you're going to get traffic from 2 tunnels coming in. It's exactly the same roads that we're going to be using.
The Blackwall Tunnel's a bottleneck, but so is the southbound A102. So is Central Greenwich. You know, it's a bottleneck among bottlenecks. And if you make one bottleneck easier to get through, you're just going to make the other bottlenecks worse.
We have to take ourselves away from this kind of culture of build more roads, have more traffic, become more privately mobile, to an era where we're kind of publicly mobile.
Air pollution causes dementia, heart problems, lung problems, asthma in children, and all that kind of thing.
There's been a lot of research recently which has shown the dangers of, let's just say, particulates and nitrogen dioxide, including for early child development, including for lung development and brain development, which are both fairly crucial to human life.
Air pollution from vehicles is comprised of nitrogen oxides and particulate matter. Particulate matter consists of tiny particles of carbon, dust, metal or rubber emitted from road vehicles. Smaller particulate matter, known as PM2, is finer and is considered especially dangerous since it can be absorbed more easily, potentially affecting the lungs, heart and brain. Children in underprivileged communities are particularly vulnerable. Research shows that those growing up in the most polluted neighbourhoods have a 5% smaller lung capacity on average. That's why judges recently ruled in favour of a second inquest into the death of 9-year-old Londoner Ella Kissy Deborah, who lived just metres away from a busy road in Lewisham, after new evidence emerged that illegal pollution levels in the area coincided with her worst asthma attacks and likely contributed to her death. While thousands of deaths in the UK and millions worldwide are linked to pollution, Ella could be the first in the country to have pollution listed as a cause of death. Even with the introduction of the Mayor's new ultra-low emission zone, toxic air pollution levels aren't expected to fall to legal limits until 2025.
We thought we could ask them to just listen to us and hear what we had to say, because we'd looked at it in great detail. I had with me Dr. Andrew Boswell, who's a climate emergency expert, Simon Parani, fossil fuels expert, Dominic Leggett, who is a transport researcher, Jenny Bates, who's a clean air campaigner, and we had a lot of information to give them. We critiqued very strongly and in great detail. It was scary to me that there was no plan to deal with the climate emergency that we're facing. we really need is for politicians to step up and take responsibility. They've got the privilege of being in power and being able to do something about the climate emergency.
The climate emergency and its potential impact on all life as we know it is real. The human cost of air pollution is real. Exposure to air pollution is causing a public health emergency in our communities. We must act now to hold our representatives to account and demand an end to toxic air in our neighbourhoods, our schools, and in our homes.